Hello, Kansas City, and welcome to another episode of Speak Up, brought to you by Televida. I am so excited today because today I get to sit down and talk to none other than Kansas City's first black mayor, but now our U.S. Representative, 5th District, Congressman Emanuel Cleaver. I've known Emanuel Cleaver since I was a kid when he was Reverend Cleaver, and he has been the same leader that I've known him to be all my life. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. I always call you Rev, but I'm going to call you Congressman today. I'm going to try to keep it up. But thank you again for coming.
Good to be with you.
Thank you. We have a lot to talk about because there's a lot going on in Kansas City, but there's even more going on in our nation.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the big things, I guess I'll start with the biggest thing that just happened yesterday. We had another mass shooting. I was listening to the news, and since I think Uvalde, there's been 250 mass shootings. And so that means we're having mass shootings every day across this country. Not all of them make the news, but there is a mass shooting. So we have a gun problem. So let's kind of talk about where you are on the gun situation and where Congress is. I know we just passed a gun law, and what do you think?
Well, first of all, I thank you for inviting me to chat with you on the show. Secondly, we do have a gun problem. Some people would prefer to say it's a people problem or aliens or turtles or something. But the truth of the matter is human beings are killing each other at a pace in our country we've never seen before. We have at least a mass shooting 3 or 4 times a week in the United States, and a mass shooting is considered 3 or more at the same time. And what makes it different than other mass shootings in recent times is that most of these mass shootings are using automatic weapons. The machine guns of World War II have been redesigned, and now they are automatic, semi-automatic weapons. They are weapons of war. And so, you know, a guy stood on the top of a building and just mowed people down in Dayton, Ohio. And there's so many shots ringing out that 2 or 3 people are hit before people can even hear the sound of the bullets. And I think that we are presenting ourselves as a mentally ill nation.
Oh, wow, yes.
Because no other nation on the planet experiences this but us. And these AK-47s, AR-15s were manufactured for the Army.
Yes.
I mean, these are weapons of war. There's no hunting with a gun like this. There is no recreational activity. They were designed to kill people. And my colleagues in Congress refused to outlaw them. When I was mayor of Kansas City back in 1994, I was the president of the National Conference of Black Mayors. We, along with the U.S. Conference of Black Mayors, supported President Clinton in outlawing those guns for 10 years. That was the problem. We had, in order to get the votes, President Clinton agreed to a 10-year sunset. And so when the 10 years were up, I knew that we would never, ever, ever get that bill across again. So we're going to continue to see the shootings. I mean, I wish I could say to the people who are viewing this, well, yeah, but it's going to stop. It's not going to stop.
Yeah.
I don't care what, in churches, synagogues, parades now, concerts.
Yes.
You know, I think we're going to have people being shot in places we never even thought we would hear about, that we've never heard about before. And it's chilling. I mean, I want to tell my little grandchildren, come on, put you guys in the basement. You can come up when you're 19.
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, it's just kind of when you start talking about sunsetting laws and passing of things, it'll segue me into Roe versus Wade. I mean, that was so devastating to me that something that has been in law for over 50 years is overturned, not because it was possibly the right thing to do, but also because we stacked the deck in the Supreme Court, and so is this where America has gone? Is we're going to stack the deck, and whoever has the highest number of decks, whoever has more aces will win the game, and so just talking about Roe versus Wade, I had someone ask me, do you think that President Biden should be focusing so heavily on it? And my thought was, no. I think that we now have to get off our tails and go vote in our local elections. So tell me what your take is on that voting.
Well, here's one of the things that I hope people will realize, and that is the Supreme Court has historically awarded additional freedoms for people, and now they're taking them away.
Yeah.
Something that has been a law for 50 years has been snatched. Now, whether a person agrees with the issue of abortion or not is in many ways not the point. Here's the point. I think we've been having abortions probably 2 or 3 years after Adam and Eve got divorced or whatever they did in the garden.
Right.
And so the issue now is not whether or not, for me, there are abortions, but they're going to eliminate the opportunity for poor people of color,
Yes.
Black and brown people, are not going to be able to get the personal health care that they deserve as women, reproductive health care. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have deaths of Black and brown people, women, who can't do what the rich kids do. When we were in school, the rich kids were having abortions, but what they did is their parents could afford to put them on an airplane. They fly them to Canada or to
Whatever country, yeah.
France, and they come back and they said, I've been on vacation, or I'm getting ready to go to a boarding school in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And they come back, the child is adopted. But for poor people, it's going down to Miss Henrietta's house, when it's dark, and Miss Henrietta can't even spell medical school, and she's doing things. My father's oldest sister, who I never met, Juanita, my grandmother was trying to raise 3 boys and a girl. She and my grandfather got divorced, and they were living in a barn, like a for real barn, for about 10 years. And she was out picking cotton, going down to a slaughterhouse, getting leftovers, just trying to take care of her family. And so she didn't pay the kind of attention to her daughter, Juanita, that she would obviously love to have done. And so she becomes impregnated at the age of 15. And the story gets fuzzy there, but all we know is that not long afterwards, both died, at some guy's house.
Wow.
And, this was back in the 1930s, I think, and 20s. It was back in the 20s. And so that has happened throughout history. It's going to continue to happen.
Yes.
And the other thing, people hate Planned Parenthood. I think less than 30% of the things Planned Parenthood does is related to abortions. Most of it is women going there for personal health care that they can't afford to get elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so I think the Supreme Court has dealt a blow. The justices who at least 3 of the justices who voted for it sat at a Senate hearing and said that they were going to protect the abortion issue for women. And they lied not just to to members of the Senate, but they may lie to the nation.
To the nation. So, and thinking about that, I remember when I was younger, one of the things I wanted to do was go to the polls and vote. I would see my parents every election. It didn't matter who. My parents were always at the polls, and they were always making their voice count. So as a kid, you're looking up and you're going, I want to do that. I want to do that. Yeah. I wanted to know what was behind those booths. And that was the first thing I did. I was 18 years old. I was in college. I was in Tennessee, and I had an absentee vote, and I voted for Jimmy Carter. First time I voted. And when I think about today, we don't take the pride in even understanding what our vote does. So if you say we're going to turn this over to the states, now if this is what the people want, then the people have the voice to make it happen, because what you do is you vote for the people that support that issue. And so,
well, I think one of the things that a lot of Americans may not understand, may not know, and that is what the Supreme Court did is unpopular with the majority of the people in the country. The polling data suggests that the overwhelming majority of the people, in some cases, well over 70%, including Republicans, want these automatic weapons banned.
Yes.
They want reproductive rights for women. They don't support the decisions that the Supreme Court is making or are poised to make, I think, on same-sex marriage. And this means that we are being ruled by a minority in a democracy where the majority is supposed to rule.
Right.
And our system has been tinkered with to the point where the majority rarely ever rules again.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, the state of Iowa is one of the smallest states and one of the whitest states. And so you start out with the presidential primaries in that state with hardly any ethnic or racial diversity.
Right.
And they set the tone for the rest of the country.
Yeah.
I mean, the Electoral College has been institutionalized here, and back in the 1800s it probably was okay. But you mean the state of Wyoming, which is the whole state doesn't have the population of our metropolitan area. In just the metropolitan area. The metropolitan area of Kansas City, Missouri is larger than the state of Wyoming in terms of population. And so they get 2 senators. We get 2 senators. Something's wrong.
Something is very wrong there. Something's very wrong. So I want to talk a little bit about what everybody's complaining about now, gas prices. And we're not going to say, after this, we're going to talk about you, the person. So gas prices, everybody is in an uproar about gas prices. And I'm old enough to remember when gas was 25 cents a gallon.
Oh, I am too. Yes.
So you go back and you go, wow, this is a big step. In the gas prices, there's so much controversy about whether we should be drilling our own oil here. There's the climate change. There's so for most people, we are unknowledgeable. We don't know what is right, what is wrong. And how do we really find out, get the right information and not just rely on news reports or barbershop conversation?
Yeah. Well, first of all, when I grew up, when you grew up, we only had 3 networks. We had ABC, CBS, and NBC. Everybody in the country watched the same news.
Yes.
So we had a common truth, and now we have one network that essentially is a part of the political apparatus of one of the political parties, and so they're going to report the news that is going to be favorable to the Republican Party, and so people don't get the same news. So they go out. A large portion of the population goes out, in some instances, believing something that ain't so, and so you look at the issue of gasoline prices, and look, the first, I think most people in business and in the political world, they understand one thing that politicians don't want people to know, and that is the president doesn't control the price of oil, nor the price of gasoline. After it has been processed and sent to the pumps, they don't have any control. When I was mayor, Rudy Giuliani and I had a somewhat of an ongoing debate because Rudy Giuliani was trying to take credit for the drop in crime. And the truth of the matter is, he didn't have, I mean, it was just the gangbangers had hit 45 in some cases. And gangbanging wasn't just good at 45 as it was
45.
when you were
25,
25.
right.
So, and I warned mayors, if you take credit when it's on the decline, when you had nothing to do with it, then you got to accept the responsibility when it rises. Same thing with oil prices. Presidents can't control oil prices. If they could, Biden would have oil prices at 25 cents a gallon.
Right.
And win re-election, with a breeze. A part of our problem is the war, in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and in the Ukraine and Russia, because Russia provides a disproportionate amount of the oil, particularly to Europe, and the Russians have helped create this problem. The United States is on its way to becoming independent, oil dependent. Independent, which means that we can, provide all the needed oil, which is gasoline, to our country. We're just a few years away. The way we get there is, and which also will help on climate change, which is to produce artificial fuel. For example, we know that we can make our country run on essentially corn. One of the things I like to tell people is when you read about Henry Ford, a day before the first car rolled down the street, Henry Ford was making a decision whether he was going to use fossil fuel, oil, or corn.
Wow.
And he decided on fossil fuel.
Yeah.
And so we then have become addicted to it. Now, I think now we're going to have electric cars.
Electric cars, yeah.
In fact, here in Kansas City, we're en route to creating a corridor where the buses will move without that fume that people can usually smell when they pass by, which is that gasoline and oil, diesel. And they're going to be running on electricity.
Yeah.
And the more and more we use electric vehicles, the less we'll have to depend on foreign countries, or Argentina, or Russia, or anywhere else.
Anywhere. So, everybody sees you, well, I won't say everybody, but most people see you as either Reverend or Congressman. Those of us that know you as Reverend, we know another side of you. Sometimes we wish you'd get more rest, because it's always here recently, in our recent history, we have been from one crisis to another crisis to another crisis. And being in those legislative seats, it has got to be tiring. What do you do to just relax your mind? Because, as a businesswoman, I have to shut down and just do nothing for a couple of days so that I can think again, because we start dropping the ball. Mm-hmm. You don't seem to drop balls, so we want to know what you're doing.
And I spend more time in Washington than I do in Kansas City. And I live in the Methodist building, in the United Methodist building in Washington.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I've been living there since I got elected. And of course, so inside the building there's a sanctuary. There are not a lot of people living there because it's an office building.
Yeah.
And so I live there, and if I'm up in Washington over the weekend, I can walk out in the hall with my pajamas on. Nobody's gonna. I don't have to worry about running into anybody. But also, I can have a prayer life because
Yeah.
nobody, I can walk around, which I've done, and pray out loud walking,
Yeah.
and that has been helpful to me. The other thing is when I get a chance to go into a thrift store and just roam around looking at junk. Uh, I mean, it relaxes me. I just really enjoy, going through thrift stores. Like this jacket I have on, which looks like it's expensive, and I think I paid $7 for
Well,
it.
it probably was expensive.
Yeah, it
It
was.
was
It
expensive.
was
Yeah.
expensive at one point. It was
Yeah.
expensive at one point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Finale.
Yes.
So yeah, I tell everybody if you can find a place or something that can relax you, and in my situation, or connect you with God, where you can push everything else aside, and just you and the Lord talking. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's been a blessing for me,
Yeah.
and in thrift stores.
Yeah. And that kind of takes you back. That makes you so unique. I think that's the unique thing about you is that you are so grounded in who you were and who you are. You haven't changed. You remember your life in Texas. You remember your upbringing. You remember your relationship with God, which is first.
Yes, yes.
And you're not. You haven't bought into the hype
Oh.
of the luxury.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my father is still alive. In fact, we spent all day with him yesterday. He's 100
Wow.
years old, or 101. He
Yeah,
says
records are hard to keep up
yeah,
with from that time.
yeah, he says he's 101. Uh, no birth certificate.
Right.
In fact, my grandmother, his mother, uh, he and his oldest brother, they didn't. She didn't keep up with the dates and so forth back in that time.
Yeah, right.
So she told me, just pick a birthday, and so my uncle picked the 22nd of July, and his oldest brother, so he picked 15th of July. He may not even been born in July.
Right, right. Yeah,
So
yeah. I know that in my grandmother's family, a lot of them, their birth dates are in a Bible. And that's
yes,
where it was written in a Bible that they were. And so
hmm
there was a Bible in the family, and you'd see it was like
yes,
16 of them. And so some of the days are not certain, but they're in
yeah,
the Bible.
hmm
So, yeah. So there was a couple of other things that I'm really impressed with is when I talk to your Republican colleagues, and I say Emmanuel Cleaver. Most of them say you are the most nonpartisan congressperson there on both sides of the aisle. You're very well respected. And I had a conversation probably a year ago with Senator Pat Roberts right after he retired. I was
hmm
at a lunch and a dinner. And one of the things that he said that also encouraged his retirement was the fact that although there's always been disagreements between the Republicans and the Democrats, they would get on the floor and they'd battle it out and they'd fuss it out and then they'd go across the street, have a drink,
that's right.
negotiate it out and come back and vote
hmm
on it, and it was squashed. And so to have that relationship where even today you still have respect across party lines,
Yeah.
that's huge. That's
Yeah, it
huge in
is.
America.
And look, I disagree with uh, the Republic. I'll just take Roy Blunt for example, or Kid Bond. I disagree with them on a lot of the policy questions, but I consider Kid Bond my running buddy. And we were a team when I was mayor in Kansas City. He was in the Senate. He was helping to get money for the projects I did in Kansas City, like Brush Creek, World War One Memorial. I mean, he and I are friends, and until recently, because he got slowed down a little. I mean, he just showed up at my office. Now, here's something that some people probably get angry about. My daughter, the daughter of a Democratic, I'm the leading Democrat. I'm the senior Democrat in Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma. My daughter was an intern in Kit Bond's office.
Wow.
My Democratic daughter in a Republican office as an intern. Roy Blunt and I are good friends. Our wives served together on the board of the Ford Theater in Washington, where Lincoln was killed.
Right.
And we spend time together in Washington. We talk. He called me to tell me he wasn't going to run, and I'll tell the world what he already knows. I said when he said that he wasn't going to run, called me earlier in the morning, and I said, Roy, don't make that decision. I said, please stay in the Senate, and he said, no, it's time for me to go. And there are a lot of reasons I wanted him to stay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know who was going to replace him, and that was frightening. But I don't think we need to hate each other because we have differences.
Yeah.
So in Washington, they know I talk to them. The Republicans sit on one side, Democrats sit on the other. I'll go over there and talk to them. Sit down in their seats. Please get out of here. No, I'm stealing ideas from you guys.
Right.
So, but if you look at my voting,
yeah,
and that's the whole different deal. But we don't have and the people out here have now turned to the belief that they have to hate people on the other side.
Yeah,
I can't do that.
You're right, and that's the point I was trying to make, that we can disagree, but we can still love each other as
Yes.
Christ loved the church.
Yes.
So this is going to conclude our episode of Speak Up. Congressman Cleaver, I want you to say whatever it is that you need to say to us, especially those of us in Kansas City and in St. Louis and in the area in which you serve, and what we can do as residents to assist you as the congressman.
Well, one of the things I hope people realize is that the United States is a durable nation. We have made it through some of the toughest things in the world. We're the only nation in history to practice chattel slavery, where the slaves had no rights at all. We got past that. And then we had Jim Crow. We were able to get past that. We used to have, thousands of lynchings in the United States where African Americans were lynched. We stopped that. And so, we are, this sounds like and looks like it's a horrible, horrible, horrible time in history. And it is bad, don't get me wrong. This is a tough time, maybe the closest we have ever been since 1776 of not being a democratic nation. However, I am absolutely convinced that we can get beyond where we are right now. The majority of the people want to do the right thing. The majority of the people are good and decent. And I think that if we want to do the right thing, one of the things we have to do is go out and vote. All of this stuff about, well, my vote doesn't count and they're going to do what they want to do. Though I hate to use this word, but that is ignorant. We need to vote. And if you don't vote, shut up. You don't have a right to complain. If you didn't vote, hush.
Well, there you have it. Hush. If you're not going to get out and go vote, don't say anything. We want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. We want to thank Televida for always giving us this platform. It's one of the greatest platforms I've ever been on. And I can just say that next time on Televida, I'll have something else for you that you may want to not miss. Have a good day, be safe, and go out and vote. Thanks.